It was 1969, the world was changing, music was changing, and a man once called the King was changing too. He was in the middle of a comeback. Not just a commercial comeback, but an artistic one. A year earlier, he had shed the slick, smiling Hollywood persona. He squeezed back into black leather, stood on a tiny stage, and reminded everyone who he was. He was raw. He was dangerous. He was real. The television special was a shot of adrenaline to his career. It worked. People remembered. Now he needed to follow it up. He couldn't go back to singing about clam bakes and race cars. The world had moved on. The Beatles had released the White Album. Jimi Hendrix was a force of nature. The stakes were higher. So he went back home, in a way. He went to Memphis. Not to the clean corporate studios he was used to, but to a grittier place called American Sound Studio. It was run by a man named Chips Moman. Moman and his house band, the Memphis Boys, were not impressed by fame. They were impressed by good music. They had a sound. It was soulful, funky, and grounded in the dirt of the Mississippi Delta. This was the perfect place for a king to rediscover his voice. And he did. In those sessions, he cut some of the most important music of his life. Songs like Suspicious Minds and In the Ghetto. They were complex, mature songs. They had depth. They had pain. They were hits. The comeback was working. The King was back on the charts, not as a nostalgia act, but as a relevant contemporary artist. The record label, RCA, was thrilled. They had their star back. They just wanted him to keep delivering the hits. And that's where the trouble started. That's where a particular song became a point of conflict. It was a song born from those same legendary Memphis sessions. It had all the ingredients. It had the same incredible band. It had the same powerful, committed vocal performance. But it had something else too. It had a darkness, a deep, relentless sadness that made the suits at the label very nervous. They listened to the recording and they didn't hear a hit, they heard a downer. They heard 3.5 minutes of pure, undiluted misery. To understand their fear, you have to understand what a pop song was supposed to do in 1969. A hit song was meant to make you feel good. It was for dancing, it was for driving with the windows down, it was for falling in love. Think about the charts at the time. You had the Archies with Sugar Sugar. You had The Fifth Dimension with Aquarius, Let the Sunshine In. You had Tommy Roe with Dizzy. These were bright, optimistic, catchy songs. They were bursts of sunshine coming out of the radio. Even the more serious soul and rock songs often had a sense of triumph or release. This song had none of that. It wasn't a song about finding love. It was a song about losing it in the most desperate way possible. The story it told was bleak. It was about a man alone, walking down a road in the middle of nowhere. And he's looking for a woman who left him. He doesn't know why she left, he just knows he has to find her. He's been searching for 7 days, he's cold, he's wet, and he's completely out of options. He's reduced to sticking his thumb out, begging for a ride from a passing truck. This is not the stuff of teenage dreams. This is the stuff of adult failure. So there's no swagger here, there's no cool confidence. The main character is a pathetic figure. He's powerless. He's at the mercy of the weather and the kindness of strangers. The label executives listened to this story and imagined it coming on the radio right after something cheerful and upbeat. It would be like a cloud covering the sun. Who wants to feel this way? Where is the hook? Where is the chorus that people can sing along to? The lyrics paint a stark picture. They are simple, direct, and full of despair. The man talks about the cold wind blowing around him. He talks about the shame of having to ask for help. He remembers the good times with his love, which only makes his current situation feel worse. He's haunted by her memory, seeing her face in his thoughts. This isn't a breakup song where the singer is angry or defiant. He's just broken. He has a single, obsessive goal to find her and bring her home. But the song gives you no reason to believe he will succeed. This lack of resolution was probably the biggest problem for the record label. A pop song, even a sad one, usually offers some kind of emotional closure. The singer gets the girl back. Or he decides he's better off without her. Or he finds a lesson in the pain. There is some kind of change or growth. This song offered none of that. It starts with a man searching in the rain, and it ends with him still searching in the rain. Nothing is resolved. No hope is offered. The final lines are just a desperate plea for the rain to stop so he can see where he's going. It just fades out on his failure. It's a snapshot of a moment of pure, unending misery. For a commercial product designed to be played between advertisements for soft drinks and cars, this was a tough sell. Then there was the music itself. The arrangement was brilliant, but it wasn't designed to be catchy. It was designed to create a mood of dread and urgency. The song opens with a rolling, propulsive piano line. It's not a happy piano. It's restless and anxious, like the man's own thoughts. It sounds like the thumping of windshield wipers on a long, dark road. It immediately establishes a feeling of unease. There's no gentle introduction, you are thrown directly into the middle of this man's crisis. The rest of the band comes in, and they build a wall of sound that is both lush and oppressive. The bass and drums create a driving rhythm, but it doesn't make you want to dance. It makes you feel the man's relentless walking, his desperate push forward. The strings, when they appear, don't sweeten the song. They heighten the drama. They swell and fall like waves of emotion, mirroring the character's internal turmoil. They sound cinematic, like the score to a tragic film. The backing vocals are not a happy choir. They are ghostly echoes of the man's pain, wailing behind him like the wind. And on top of it all was his voice. The performance he gave was, by any artistic measure, stunning. But it was also completely devoid of pop gloss. He wasn't crooning, he was pleading. He inhabited the character so completely that you could feel his desperation in every note. You could hear the strain in his throat as he pushed his voice higher, begging for help, begging for his love to be found. He wasn't winking at the audience, he wasn't performing sadness, he was channeling it. When he sings about being cold and alone, his voice is thin and vulnerable. When he sings about his determination to keep searching, it becomes a powerful, almost operatic roar of anguish. It was a tour de force of vocal acting, but it was raw and exposed. It was the sound of a man at the end of his rope. For the label, this was a problem. It was too intense, too emotional, it didn't feel safe. The king was supposed to be in control. He was supposed to be the hero. In this song, he was a victim. He was lost. This vulnerability, while artistically powerful, was commercially frightening. The label likely looked at the recent success of Suspicious Minds. That song was also about emotional turmoil, about a relationship in trouble. But it was different. It had a massive catchy sing-along chorus, it had a driving, almost euphoric energy. It was about a conflict, but it felt like a conflict that could be won. It was a song you could shout along with. This new song was one you listened to alone in the dark. It was internal, it was isolating, it didn't have a big memorable chorus. The title of the song is only sung a few times, almost as a statement of fact about the setting. It wasn't a hook, it was just part of the miserable scenery. RCA had a formula for him. The formula was a big voice, a strong melody, and a story that was relatable but not too challenging. They wanted romance, heartbreak, or fun. This song didn't fit neatly into any of those boxes. It was a country story, with its narrative focus on a down-on-his-luck character. It was a soul performance, with its raw, gospel-inflected vocal. It was a pop production, with its strings and elaborate arrangement. It was a hybrid of styles, which can sometimes make radio programmers nervous. They like songs they can easily categorize. There was also the question of image. The King had spent the 1960s being packaged as a clean-cut, fun-loving movie star. The 68 comeback special had successfully replaced that image with a more adult, dangerous one. But there's a difference between dangerous and defeated. The label wanted him to be the smoldering, confident man in black leather, not the shivering, heartbroken man on the side of the road. They feared this song would make him seem weak. They had invested millions in building an icon of masculine cool. This song was the sound of that icon crumbling. The songwriters, Eddie Rabbitt and Dick Hurd, were not part of his usual stable of writers. They were young Nashville guys. Rabbitt later said he got the idea for the song while he was stuck in a small apartment, washing dishes and looking out the window at the rain. The story felt authentic because it came from a real place of quiet contemplation and a little bit of melancholy. It was a storyteller's song. It wasn't crafted in a boardroom to be a hit. It was a piece of art that came from a simple, human moment. This kind of raw, unpolished honesty was exactly what made the Memphis sessions so great, but it was also what scared a major corporation. The corporations like predictability. This song was anything but predictable, so the debate must have happened behind closed doors. The producers and the artists on one side, the executives on the other. The artist, fresh from his creative rebirth, was fighting for material that meant something to him. He was a country boy from Mississippi. He understood stories about hard luck and heartache. He probably connected with the character's desperation on a deep level. He knew he could sing it with conviction because he felt it. He was tired of the shallow movie songs. He wanted this. He wanted to prove he was more than just a handsome face and a good voice. He was an interpreter of human emotion. The executives, on the other hand, were looking at sales charts and radio playlists. They were thinking about their investment. They had a global superstar in their hands who was finally selling records again. Why risk that momentum on a song that was so profoundly sad? Why not release something more like Don't Cry Daddy, another song from those sessions which, while sad, was more of a traditional sentimental ballad? This other song was different. It was cinematic in its scope. It felt like a short film. But it was a film with a very unhappy ending. In their minds, the song was too depressing to be a hit because it broke all the rules. The hero was a loser. The story had no happy ending. The music was moody and atmospheric instead of catchy and upbeat. The vocal performance was emotionally raw to the point of being uncomfortable. It didn't make you want to tap your feet, it made you want to feel sorry for the singer. And in the world of pop music, pity doesn't usually sell records. They believe that audiences wanted to escape their problems, not listen to a 3-minute document of someone else's. But they were wrong. They underestimated the artist's connection to his audience. They underestimated the audience's willingness to embrace a more complex, mature sound from him. And they underestimated the power of the song itself. Against their better judgment, the song was released as a single in early 1970. And the public proved the executives wrong. It was a hit. It climbed into the top 20 on the Billboard charts. It wasn't as massive as Suspicious Minds, but it was a significant success. It proved that there was an appetite for this kind of material. People heard the song and they didn't turn the radio off. They turned it up. Why? Because the very things the label saw as weaknesses were, in fact, the song's greatest strengths. The story was bleak, but it was real. Everyone has felt lost at some point. Everyone has felt the desperation of searching for something or someone they can't find. The song's honesty resonated. The character wasn't a superhero, he was just a man, and his vulnerability made him relatable. The musical arrangement, while not traditionally catchy, was incredibly compelling. It pulled you into the story. It was impossible to listen to that frantic piano and not feel the character's anxiety. The entire production created a world that you could step into for 3.5 minutes. It was immersive, it was powerful, and his vocal performance, people heard the pain in his voice, and they believed it. It was a reminder that underneath the jumpsuits and the fame, he was a human being with a heart that could break. It was one of the most honest and powerful performances of his entire career. The lack of pop polish was precisely what made it so effective. It was real. In a world of plastic pop, realness stood out. The song's success was a victory for artistic instinct over corporate formula. It validated his decision to go to Memphis and record music that mattered to him. It showed that he knew his audience better than the suits in New York did. He knew they were ready to follow him into darker, more complicated emotional territory. Today, the song is considered a classic. It's a fan favorite and a staple of his concert recordings from that era. It stands as a perfect example of his interpretive genius, his ability to take a story and make you feel every single word. It perfectly blends his country roots, his soul influences, and his pop sensibilities. It is a masterpiece of mood and performance. The record label thought it was too depressing because they were selling a product. They saw a list of commercial risks. But he was making art, he saw a human story that needed to be told. The label was worried about making people sad. He understood that sometimes the most beautiful music is born from the deepest sadness. He knew that a song about a lonely man searching for his love on a dark, rainy road wasn't a commercial risk. It was a universal truth. The song was Kentucky Rain.